What is an implicit contract? An implicit contract is a non-written, unwritten agreement between two parties that establishes the terms and conditions of a business or employment relationship. Unlike explicit contracts that are formal and legally binding, implicit contracts rely on trust and mutual understanding between the parties involved. This type of contract is often based on the norms, customs, and expectations of the industry or profession, and it is commonly used in situations where formal contracts are impractical, unnecessary, or too costly to enforce. Implicit contracts are common in many areas of business and employment, including labor markets, financial markets, and supply chains. In these settings, parties often rely on implicit contracts to establish trust in long-term relationships that are beneficial for both parties. For example, in the labor market, an implicit contract between an employer and employee might involve a promise of job security, a certain level of pay and benefits, and opportunities for career advancement. Implicit contracts can be seen as a form of social capital, which is the network of relationships, norms, and values that facilitate cooperation and trust among individuals and groups. By establishing implicit contracts, parties can build social capital and create a sense of shared interest and commitment that can lead to more productive and sustainable business relationships. One of the key features of implicit contracts is that they are often based on mutual trust and cooperation between the parties involved. This trust can be built over time through repeated interactions, and it can be reinforced by shared norms, values, and goals. For example, in a supply chain, an implicit contract between a manufacturer and a supplier might involve a shared commitment to quality, reliability, and timely delivery. Implicit contracts can also be shaped by external factors such as regulations, market conditions, and social norms. For example, in the financial markets, implicit contracts between investors and companies might be influenced by regulatory requirements, market volatility, and industry standards. Another important aspect of implicit contracts is that they are often based on shared expectations and assumptions about the behavior of the parties involved. These expectations can be influenced by factors such as reputation, past performance, and industry standards. For example, in the labor market, an implicit contract between an employer and employee might be based on the expectation that the employee will perform well, be loyal to the company, and follow the company's policies and procedures. Implicit contracts can also be influenced by power dynamics between the parties involved. For example, in a supplier-customer relationship, the customer may have more bargaining power and may be able to impose certain terms and conditions on the supplier. In such cases, implicit contracts may be used as a way for the supplier to negotiate better terms and build a stronger relationship with the customer. One of the challenges of implicit contracts is that they are often difficult to enforce and can be subject to misinterpretation or misunderstanding. Because they are not formal or legally binding, implicit contracts may be subject to ambiguity or disagreements about the terms and conditions of the agreement. In addition, implicit contracts may be vulnerable to opportunistic behavior or breach of trust by one or both parties involved. To overcome these challenges, parties can take steps to clarify and reinforce implicit contracts. This might involve communicating clearly about expectations and obligations, establishing mechanisms for monitoring and enforcing the agreement, and building a track record of reliable and trustworthy behavior. In conclusion, an implicit contract is a non-written, unwritten agreement between two parties that establishes the terms and conditions of a business or employment relationship. Implicit contracts are based on trust, mutual understanding, and shared expectations, and they are commonly used in situations where formal contracts are impractical, unnecessary, or too costly to enforce. While implicit contracts can be a powerful tool for building social capital and establishing long-term relationships, they also present challenges related to ambiguity, enforcement, and trust. By taking steps to clarify and reinforce implicit contracts, parties can build stronger and more productive relationships that benefit both parties and contribute to the overall success of the business or industry. One example of how implicit contracts can benefit both parties is in the labor market. Employers may offer implicit contracts to employees that promise job security, opportunities for advancement, and a certain level of pay and benefits. In return, employees may be expected to perform well, be loyal to the company, and follow the company's policies and procedures. By establishing these implicit contracts, both employers and employees can build trust and commitment, which can lead to a more productive and stable workforce. Another example of how implicit contracts can be beneficial is in supply chain relationships. Manufacturers and suppliers may establish implicit contracts that include a commitment to quality, reliability, and timely delivery. By building trust and cooperation through these implicit contracts, both parties can benefit from a more efficient and effective supply chain. While implicit contracts are not legally binding, they can still have legal implications. In some cases, implicit contracts can be enforceable if they can be proven to exist and if the terms and conditions are clear and unambiguous. For example, if an employer promises an employee job security in exchange for their loyalty and performance, this promise may be legally enforceable in some jurisdictions. Overall, implicit contracts are a valuable tool for building trust and cooperation between parties in business and employment relationships. By establishing shared expectations and obligations, parties can build social capital and create a sense of shared interest and commitment. While implicit contracts are not without challenges, by taking steps to clarify and reinforce the agreement, parties can build stronger and more productive relationships that benefit both parties.